Welcome to Curiosity Unleashed with David Brown. It's so lovely to see you. I think it's been 3 months. I think we said kind of last time.
Yeah.
It feels a lot longer. It feels like, I don't know, a lot has emerged. I've been diving into the tree of emergence, so sorry if there's going to be a few emergent things coming up.
Mm.
But yeah, I'd love to hear what's emerging for you in this space, in this time of craziness, but sunlight and
Yeah.
shifts, lots of shifts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, life is an emergent process, right?
Yeah.
Which, given that it's spring in the UK, the buds are coming out and the everything's really bright and green. And we've just been walking with my niece and her two young children in the a little place called Primrose Wood, just around the corner from where I live in Bath now. And yeah, the butterflies, the
Amazing.
bright
Yeah.
yellow brimstone butterflies and the red admirals are flying around now. So it feels really, yeah, this is just a magical time of year and
It
a
is.
magic. And if you think of sort of cycles, that this is a magic period in the cycle process, right? Of all of this stuff starting under the ground and
Mm.
it's all invisible.
Mhm.
But when you start to see things, then already the momentum is going and already,
Yeah.
things are starting to flow.
Mhm.
And so much of that creative process has already started to happen.
Well, yeah, there's so much in there, isn't it? I mean, I just want to mention when we're recording this, it's also the new moon today. And we're also going into the new astrological year on Friday, which is the Aries, the start of the zodiac.
Okay.
And we're going into equinox,
Yes.
and I think there's so much value in what you're saying as to by the time we see the progress, there's been so much work and so much
Yeah.
grounding that's happened, and the creative process has gone so far already by
Yes.
that time. And I just want to mention that there's also an aspect of frustration and anger, fire in that breaking out and coming through the ground, into this bit that we see the beauty of. There is
Mhm.
that element of discomfort for us to be able to, or for nature to be able to move into this space of beauty. Um,
Yeah. Tell me, say more about the anger and frustration, because I really get this thing about discomfort. And
mm,
and and I re and I think I observe nature and I see nature be comfortable with discomfort. Like
mm,
there isn't frustration and there isn't anger, I don't think.
yeah,
This is what I'm interpreting. I don't see it as there being anger or frustration there, but what I do see is this acknowledgement that this process, this threshold, it requires me to go through some discomfort and a
yeah,
trust that what's on the other side of that is for the greater good.
yeah.
And I get that animals and plants don't think of it in those terms, but that's kind of how I'm
Mm.
anthropologicizing these processes
Yeah,
that
that's a nice word.
yeah.
Um, yes. So for me, I experience it usually quite often, and these are words. So for me, it's also frustration and anger. Obviously, means something different for you. I think if we feel into it. Um, but there is an element of frustration, and I know I have a friend that's very into Chinese medicine and the five elements and that kind of thing, and there is this aspect of fire. And there's a discomfort. I mean, I'm kind of bringing it back. I've just been building on the new season in the Wisdom Seekers, which is Alchemy of Trust. And the element is fire, and I'm working with myths. So there's birds. So I have the phoenix and the lightning bird and the thunderbird, and you know, it just feels, and even working with this tree of emergence or the emergent creation story of the Navajo, which is movement between worlds. They have these four worlds, and the movement only happens when there's discomfort. So whatever that discomfort is, for me, it's often I experience it as frustration. Like I'm not satisfied or I'm not happy in this. I need to move, forward, and there's a gap between the movement, between the stagnation and the movement. There's this gap of, I don't know, interesting to explore. Like what is it? For me, maybe I experience it as frustration because that's the word that it feels closest to it. But it's
Mm,
definitely an urge to push through. And I almost feel that in nature as well. It's like all these sounds suddenly. And I mean, it's this week, like in the past 2 or 3 days, the birds are singing. It's rich in not just beauty, there's sounds and there's butterflies and there's wasps and there's all kinds of things and movements that just wasn't there for the past at least 5 months. Um, when you get to my age, you often find yourself lying awake in the middle of the night thinking about random things, and it's been so quiet in the
mm,
night. Like
mm,
there was nothing. And now I wake up earlier and suddenly there's the pheasant who seems to be lost, and I think he's a boyfriend of one of the chickens, so he's constantly in the background somewhere. Or you know what I mean? There's an aliveness, but there
mm,
was also a gap, like a transition period. And I often wonder how we experience it individually.
mm. Yeah. I yeah, in the sovereign leadership work that is kind of like the main focus really of the work that I do now.
Mm,
We talk about this internal process of awareness, acceptance, and choice,
hmm
um, which has kind of been made very, very common in the coaching world through Viktor Frankl's, his work and his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And then, um,
I actually have such an old copy of it. It's one of my favorite
oh,
books.
really? Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that one of the most, or they're all three of those stages are really important. But I think what I'm learning is that the acceptance stage is I think is that quiet work,
Mm,
the quiet work of how do I come to terms with, how do I really accept and befriend my frustration or my discomfort or my anger or my fill in the feeling, sensation, emotions that you're experiencing. And if I meet that emotion or feeling with impatience and unkindness, then that creates one outcome or one
mm,
possible set of possible outcomes. But if I can learn to be compassionate and kind and loving and patient with the feeling that I'm having, then my experience then is that the frustration, the resistance dissolves away, and it allows me to be with the rich tapestry of emotions that is the human experience. But
mm,
it allows me to be able to move through those things um, much more peacefully. Perhaps even to use the phrase from sort of again this kind of regal thing, but to be able to do so with dignity and with a sense of grace and a sense of compassion for not just myself, but for the people that are sharing the journey with me.
mm.
Um, and I think that acceptance process requires a real stillness
Yeah,
and a quietness and a willingness to sit with the discomfort.
yeah.
Yeah. And in my coaching with people more and more, I kind of run the risk of perhaps frustrating them a little bit and angering them a little bit because it's like, yeah, and we keep coming back to this, just sit with it longer. There's more here. There's more for you to mine and excavate here that's going to be of real value.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I think so awareness is this first step, but I think I see more and more that people have awareness these days, which is great, compared to when I was a kid, my parents and I had so little awareness of what I was feeling and what my internal experience was. But that seems to be much less now, and there's much more awareness of what we're feeling. But what
mm,
we do is we move to action straight away, often.
mm,
So
mm,
we were talking about my niece's youngest child who she's 4 and she finds it really hard to regulate herself. And
mm,
this skill of being able to not regulate as in suppress and push down and control, but regulate as in the process of accepting, okay, I
yeah,
feel angry, I feel upset, I feel disappointed, frustrated, whatever it might be. And then
mm,
it's like helping her to breathe,
mm,
so she talks about this uh oh, what was the thing that she said? It's breathe in something. That's right, yeah. Breathe in the smell of the flowers and blow out the candles.
yeah,
Right. So I
yeah.
was doing this yesterday with her because she was having a bit, and I was like, oh, I feel so relaxed. This is so lovely. But it was just like even her frustration wasn't bothering me
Mm,
because it was like I wasn't getting upset. I wasn't getting activated by this process and so because I wasn't getting activated, then my great nieces, she just went, it
yeah,
was all good. Happened so
yeah,
fast. It was amazing.
yeah,
So yeah. So instead of moving from awareness straight into action, it's
yeah,
okay, how do I accept that? And then suddenly all of these choices and possibilities of how I can respond to this situation present themselves.
mm,
Um, but it's doing the work under the ground
yeah,
first
yeah,
that I think is really powerful.
yeah. There's something interesting about what you're saying about acceptance, because within that acceptance, I mean, I understand there's compassion and there's kindness and there's all that, but I feel that there can also be a level of expression of the experience, what am I to make that internal, external
Yeah,
in a way that we can go. I am angry, or, I am frustrated with the narrative that we still have to accept sometimes. And this is why. And, my anger isn't directed at you or anyone. It's just a internal process that I'm working through. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And again, it's so expressing it is great and
Mm.
really, really important. And again, there's a skill of how do I express it, right? Which
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
four-year-old
It's
great niece doesn't have because
no,
you
no,
know,
she's still
she doesn't
going
have,
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. She's still trying to work it out. But
Yeah.
again, there's that skillful thing of being able to, yeah, I feel frustrated by the system.
Yeah.
And it just makes me so angry
Mhm.
that, my kids don't get the opportunities that I can see are just boiling up inside of them. And they just want that possibility of being able to go to this place or have
Yeah.
that lesson or speak to that mentor or but the system just won't let them
Yeah.
and then it's like to express that and to feel heard and seen and acknowledged is also really important, and then all of that then allows us to process it. It's all
Yeah.
part of that, and then it's like, okay, right, so now I'm
Now,
good now. Right. So now what? Now what do we do?
yeah.
What are the options available to us now
Yeah.
from this point?
And that's that key word, to be seen,
Yes.
for my frustrations. I use the word frustrations a lot. I'm not really frustrated.
No. Are you
Um,
sure? No.
um, but there are many people that are in places at the moment where they don't get to enjoy their day in the sunshine, or there's some bad shit happening in the world, and there are people that are using narratives to put certain groups into to dehumanize certain groups of people. And that for me is such a frustration, or something that really makes me feel the not being seen of everybody so blatant. Yeah, so for your niece as well, I think, or for your great niece, for her to be seen in how she is experiencing a moment, um, is not something that all children have had available to them.
No.
It's been a world where a lot of people have grown up or grown into identities from a space of not having been seen. I hope I
Yes.
make any sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we're dealing with that aspect of people as well,
Yeah.
where, yeah, we sometimes have to regulate them in ourselves, if that makes
Yes.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. The the impact of not being seen
Mm,
is so powerful.
mm,
And then and then when that isn't kind of dealt with,
yeah.
then the like back to frustrate, the frustration and anger that I used to feel
Mm.
when I felt that I wasn't being seen.
Yeah.
Oh, as an adult, as a parent,
Yeah.
wow. Some of the worst things, like, and I didn't do anything like really bad, right? But some of the most uncompassionate, unloving things that I did as a parent of not understanding my son
Mm.
came from this place of, it's activating all of this stuff that I have inside of me that
Yeah.
comes from not being seen when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it just used to erupt inside of me in a way that I didn't understand, as a new father in my early 30s. And it was just like I was like, oh my God, like I don't recognize myself. Like it
Yeah.
was really,
Yeah.
and then years later through therapy and being able to understand this desire that I have inside of myself to be seen and to be heard, and
Mm.
feeling like all of that stuff that felt unseen and unheard, as all of that had been dealt with. Now it's like, wow, I would have done things so different.
Yes. And yet that's where the acceptance also comes in.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was this one example. We were camping and in the New Forest
Yeah.
in the UK, and we'd gone to this place. I can't remember what the place was, but it had one of these gift shops.
Yeah.
And my son, he had a certain amount of pocket money, and it meant that he wanted to get something for himself and he wanted to get something for his grandparents, and he only had enough money for one or the other.
Mm.
So he chose to buy the thing for himself.
Yeah.
And he played with this thing and he had a great time. And we went back to the campsite and he was playing with it in the tent. And at some point in the evening, he had this realization, oh my God, I haven't bought anything for my nanny and granddad. And he felt he was unconsolable,
Oh, wow.
and he just completely had a meltdown.
Yeah.
And his mum was so great with him and in the meantime, I was pacing up and down outside the tent, like, oh my God, what's the point? Dun-dun-dun-dun. Like I was just so mechanical and linear, and what's done is done, and all of those things. And all he wanted was to be seen and heard in his anguish.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I say it was a failing in the sense that I just didn't have the capacity.
Mm.
And I understand now why I didn't have the capacity.
Yeah.
So I have compassion for myself for it, but just to sort of realize that, um, that was what was required. And
Mm.
what frustrated me was I couldn't solve it because I was trying to solve it,
Yeah.
whereas all he needed was to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's that's all I needed as a kid.
Yeah.
And that's all he needed as a kid. And his
Mm.
mum could give that to him. And I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
So
And yet, that plays out that balance or equilibrium, no, balance that we often miss between the feminine and the masculine,
yeah,
between the acceptance and the action, um, as as representations of that feminine and that masculine as well, because
yeah.
the feminine has that ability, almost the instinct to just be there with this thing, where the drive in the masculine is to how do I fix it? How do I move this action?
Well, I agree, and I also I think that the masculine has the capacity to do that too. I think
If
it looks
they can
different.
connect to their internal feminine, because we have a balance within ourselves in this as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I certainly think connecting to the feminine really helps.
Mm.
But I think this is only my experience, so I don't
Yeah.
know if this is true, right? But my
All truths
experience,
are half truths, aren't they?
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. In doing the feminine work in myself, I also noticed that my masculine was um like I developed my capacity in my masculine to be able to do that too. Like
Mm.
there's a so we often talk about um like the masculine kind of holding the space,
Yeah.
like Father Sky and
Yeah.
Mother Earth holds.
Mm.
Father Sky creates the space, Mother
Mhm.
Earth holds.
Mm.
And I think that there is something about holding the space for that,
Mhm.
yeah, rather than just rather than holding, yeah, but just creating the space to be able to make that possible.
Yes. And I suspect,
Sorry,
yeah.
if I can just jump in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then there's often then, which is, and I think that this is where the masculine stuff comes in, is that there is this willingness then for the child to do the things that perhaps mean that they get the cut knee or the
Mm.
scabby elbow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do that thing that's dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm here to catch you if you fall,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is dangerous, and often the feminine might can be like, don't do the dangerous thing,
Mm.
yeah, because it's about the nurturing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the challenge of the masculine is no, do that dangerous thing,
Yeah.
right?
And I'll catch you.
And yeah, and I'll be there, yeah, to
Mm.
hold you. So
Yeah. And this is what is interesting for me,
mm,
as even, going back to Jung's work specifically, as, seeing the animus and the anima within each of us, and how we can, um, balance isn't the right word again, but, kind of allow both of these sides to have their space. I think. masculinity has got a bad rap in a societal aspect of, to be masculine is to protect, to do these things, but it requires a sense of dissociation from what you are protecting.
Oh yeah.
In the societal, I'm not saying that is what the masculine is, because I think the masculine is much deeper than that. And there's such a need for that aspect to this internal um not play, balance, this yin yang
Dynamic,
dynamic. That's the
dynamic
perfect word.
flow.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Totally.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yet again, the narrative, the societal patriarchal bullshit, to put it nicely, has put us into a place where masculinity isn't seen in its fullness,
No.
you know. So we often focus in it, especially in this spiritual industry that
Mm.
is created. It's like the toxic masculine and the divine feminine is often the two sides, where there's a divine masculine and divine feminine that I don't think we see either of them in their own fullness,
Yep.
because they can only be seen in their togetherness, in their individuality. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if both sides are healthily in touch with their other sides, that's how we find that dynamic. Dynamic is the perfect word for this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think, and also the toxic masculine, but also toxic feminine,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
which I know is, not the done thing to say, but there is that, and but there is this fullness, there's this
Yeah.
maturity of both, and I think you're right. They only can be in their fullness when they come together, and they
Yeah.
dance with each other.
Yeah.
And I'm a real fan of the yin yang sign,
Mm. Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
has this universal application, right? But there is the black spot in the white tier, and there is the black the other way around
Yeah.
on the other side.
Yeah.
Can't remember what I
Yeah.
said. But yeah, so there is that. Yeah. I mean, some of the most profound self-development work I've ever done was a book called Maiden to Mother.
Okay. I think you've told me
Um,
that.
yeah, I I did the work a few years ago, but I was really drawn to the work, and there was this bit in my head that was like, well, I'm not doing that feminine stuff. I'm a bloke, and but it kept so and it's a wonderful book, and it has incredible exercises, and the work that the woman does, and I can't remember her name, um Dunham or Durham Wilson is her, I think is her surname.
Yeah.
She does some really, really amazing feminine work, but she's
Yeah.
very open to working with men. But the understanding that I got from doing those exercises about the feminine, like really got my masculine to step up. It was really, really transformational work.
Yeah.
And that was just reading the book and doing exercises in her book. So, working with the woman herself is probably
Yeah.
even more potent.
Sarah Dunham Wilson was it?
Sarah Dunham Wilson, that's it. Yeah.
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 Um, yeah. And that we've just started watching this new documentary, Louis Theroux, Manosphere.
Oh
Uh,
yes, I've seen it. Not watched it, but I've seen it advertised.
yeah, it's quite intense. It's
Right.
quite like, wow, you know. Um, yeah, there's some worlds that I prefer not to want to,
Oh,
Um, I do feel that it's maybe necessary to be exposed to the fact that these things, or these spaces, these influencers exist, because that is what is being projected in many spaces that our children are in. Um, but wow, yeah, there is still a world that really doesn't care about, you know, um, even the awareness,
yeah.
they're skipping that whole aspect, which is a bit scary. Um, yeah, and then to go back and say, okay, well, I have a choice how and where I show up in this world, and yeah, with my children, and how we hold each other
Mm,
in this space that we
yeah.
create. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've been incredibly lucky and had some really phenomenal male role models that have emotional intelligence, and they demonstrate really good, I think, good positive masculinity.
Mm,
Um, and they're
mhm.
man enough to go, yeah, when I was younger, I did really stupid things and said
Yeah,
stuff that I kind of go, "Oh, I wish I hadn't said that." But,
yeah,
but we
yeah,
do these things when we're young. And yeah, I can say the same, that there are things that I've done. But but yeah, we we all do the best that we can with what we know, and that's not an
exactly.
excuse to just kind of carry on regardless. But yeah, in that spirit of in that spirit of I am enough, I am sovereign as I am,
Hmm.
and I'm open to growing, and I'm opening to being more a bigger version of myself, a better version of myself.
Yeah,
That there's this kind of dichotomy of I'm enough
yeah,
and I'm open to being more. And I
yeah,
think that's a really beautiful dynamic to play with as well.
yeah. And there's flow and, holding within that as well. There is that aspect of acceptance because acceptance is that middle ground where we can go, okay, what is it? I've already been made aware of it, so I know what it is, but how do I sit with it without judgment? Again, we
Yeah,
spoke about this last time as well.
yeah.
We can only be in acceptance if we can sit without judgment and in suspension of judgment.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what is there in here for me to learn?
Yeah,
What is there for me to expand?
yeah,
The gift of rejection, the gift of criticism, the gift of failure, the gift of these things that often we desperately try and avoid at all costs, because we've got this narrative going on that it's bad to fail or be criticized or to be rejected. But actually, there's massive gifts in these things.
yeah.
And again, it requires the quiet work of looking at this stuff to get the gifts.
Yeah, and feeling the discomfort,
Yeah.
yeah, moving through it, and knowing that it's never really an arrival. It's a nexus. This tree of emergence story is such a good example of it because it's kind of in each world they find that they have to move, but they don't know where they're moving to. So it's kind of it's a read more like, and they're moving up into uncertainty. And I think that's also part of that in between is the uncertainty and the letting go of the certainty.
Yes.
'Cause that can be quite uncomfortable as well in its own. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, you know, having that deep belief of knowing that you're enough
Mm,
means that, again, my experience is that it makes it easier to go into uncertainty, because it's like, well, I'll deal with it.
yeah.
And if I don't deal with it, then I'll learn.
Yeah.
And if I don't deal with it, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me.
Yeah.
I just didn't know, or I wasn't quick enough, or I didn't know enough, or whatever
Mm,
it is. But it doesn't mean I'm not enough. And I used to believe so much that I wasn't enough. Like, I
yeah.
can't tell you how much that dominated my thinking, and how it held me back, and it slowed me down, and it stopped me from doing so many things that I really wanted to do, and
Yeah.
stopped me from being so many of the things that I wanted to be. But when I started doing the thing of I am enough, and I started to realize that, then suddenly, yeah, uncertainty became oh, well,
Challenge.
this could be, yeah, but this
Yeah.
is like an exciting thing, not
Yeah.
something that I want to run from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and don't get me wrong, there are times where I'm like about uncertainty, but much more than before. And so I know I'm moving in the right direction when it
Mm.
comes to that.
Well, the system is rigged that way, isn't it? To make us feel that we're not enough. Because then, if we think we're not enough, then then we're going to buy the thing. Marketing is geared that way. So it's going to tell me that I need to buy that thing so that I can look better or whatever, fix the problem that is me.
Yeah.
And it is not an easy realization or, to come back to I am enough because we were enough when we were babies, when we were born, we knew we were enough.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of conditioning that happened in between that.
Yeah.
And it's still, I mean, the world is built on that. The system is built on that to reiterate the situation or the belief.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that brings us back again to being seen. Similar within the masculine and the feminine conversation. Each of those archetypes are about being seen. Seen me for who I am, not for who you're projecting me to be.
Yeah. 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 I'm from a Jewish background,
Yeah,
and I at 13 young boys have a thing called a bar mitzvah, which is this kind of coming of age thing
yeah,
where young boys take on the religious responsibilities of the religion,
yeah,
which I won't bore you with. And there's always this big party and this big hoo-ha, and it's great for the community and family and friends, and I hated it. But there's this, so one of the things that, that there's pictures, there's pictures of, with your mum and with your dad and with your siblings and all of this stuff. And there's this one picture that I have with my dad. Um, and I'm looking straight into the camera. And I found this picture a couple of years ago, and my eyes are saying, have I done enough now
yeah.
to be accepted? Have I done enough to be loved? Like I can see it clearly in my eyes.
Mm.
And the whole thing about that process was I was being acknowledged for pretty much everything that I felt that I wasn't.
Mm, true.
Mm. Yeah. So, but as far as particularly my mum was concerned, jumping through those hoops was really, really important. And I
Yeah,
and I have an understanding of why that is,
yeah,
which we don't we can go into if you want.
yeah.
But more importantly, I had this experience of right, I am being acknowledged and celebrated
Mm.
for pretty much nothing of what it is that I feel that I am
Yeah, or want to be.
or want to be. Yeah, I had no aspirations for any of that, and
Mm.
um, so the process of trying to discover who I am,
Yeah.
and actually enough to come to the point where it's like having that realization of, yeah, well, then I am enough as I am.
Mm.
So I was 13, then I'm going to be 55 next month. I'm
Yeah.
Aries. But yeah, uh, yeah, it's been a long journey.
Mm.
But yeah, to get to that point where it's like I can look in the mirror and go, yeah, this as it is enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It is quite a thing to accept because, you know, and especially for um I believe that knowledge is one thing, learning whatever we need to know, the tools and the things,
Mm,
but through experience is where we get the wisdom. And that for me is really the journey. Not knowing the stuff because, all truths are half truths until we know something else. We can only work with what we have or what we know. Yet within experience, it's become something embodied. It becomes something of, you reflecting back at two instances now over 20 and 30 years ago, which made big impressions on you. But
mm.
you have embodied that experience into, okay, that is part of who I am and I can accept it
Yeah.
and I can move forward.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
can see myself, as the observer almost and see, okay, this is where I am and this is where I came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. One of my teachers taught me that concept as a kind of like we have an intellectual understanding of things,
Mm,
and often we are way more intellectually
mm.
mature than we are emotionally mature.
Yeah.
Like, so again, so that very classic thing of why am I doing this thing that I know that I shouldn't do, but I'm doing it anyway?
Yeah.
What is that mismatch, right? And that mismatch is that I'm
Mm,
intellectually intelligent enough to know that I shouldn't do it, but emotionally I still need to do this thing
mm.
because emotionally I haven't caught up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that whole inner process of catching up emotionally,
Yeah.
is the word that I think you're speaking to.
Yeah.
That's all done quietly, often behind closed
Exactly.
doors,
Underground. Yeah.
underground, yeah. And then suddenly the shoots start coming up, and it's like I used to have this real kind of image of my life as like a barren and arid desert. That
Yeah.
was how I used to kind of, in my imagination, I used to visualize it. And it's not until quite recently that I've started to, there are green shoots and there are bright flowers and there are trees and, there's a
Yeah.
kind of an abundance in that vision now. Um, but all of that is because of that underground work.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely a role for that. And again, dynamic. You've just given me the right word. I've been looking for this word now for years. So instead of balance, it's a dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, balance is dynamic, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you stand on one leg,
Yeah.
you,
The
you
other side isn't
you're
not
not
doing
just,
anything.
yeah, but you're not still. You're if you actually pay attention, your foot is moving and wobbling and you're adjusting all the time.
Yeah.
So balance itself is not a static thing, it's a dynamic thing. So I think balance is a great word, but yeah, it as long as
It
you've
is,
got the
but it's also
understanding.
yeah, and it's again this word thing, in my mind, balance means equality, and that's not what I mean. I mean
Okay.
a movement between, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dynamic is perfect. And thank you for this dynamic conversation, dialogue.
Yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
Thank
And I
you.
hope what I've shared as well has been like useful for, because sometimes the shared experiences, the lived experiences are helpful for people to um, see how what is shared applies to them and how they
Yeah.
can help themselves. Yeah.
Well, I think different voices, in every dialogue or in every conversation, we change
Mm,
because we are able to hold someone else's perspective if we're open to it.
mhm.
So yes, I know it has.
Brilliant. Great.
Thank you,
Great.
David.